Good howdy, folks. Welcome back to another James Blackburn experience. Today we're in the Bosque, or the Rio Grande Valley State Park here in New Mexico, and we're going to go on a little hike. So what do you say we get out there and stretch these legs? All right, greetings and salutations, my friends. As I had mentioned a minute ago, I'm out stretching the old legs on a hike in the Rio Grande Valley State Park here in the woods, loving every minute of it. And I've been doing this a lot lately. A lot of solo hiking to kind of address a couple things. One, physically, I'm trying to get stronger, get in better shape. But emotionally, I'm trying to do the same too. And when you hike alone, you have a lot of time to think. You have a lot of time to sort through things. And I'm out here in the woods by myself. It's quiet. I don't listen to music while I'm here. I just listen to the sounds of nature. So it gives me plenty of time to think and, do two basic things while I'm here. One, do some physical activity, get some exercise. Two, do some emotional activity. Give your brain some exercise. While I'm out here alone, I have time to think about so many different things, so many different moments and people and history. And today, unfortunately, is going to be a bit of a somber video because it deals with the loss of life. So stay tuned and I'll go more into detail on that in just a minute. Now you're wondering whose loss of life, and that is Mr. Robert Carradine, actor, filmmaker, director, producer, family man, all around good person from what I've heard of folks who knew him. And for me personally, Robert Carradine meant a lot to my life for several different reasons. One, he was in a lot of Westerns. So I felt like he's a fellow gunfighter because I'm also a member of the New Mexico Gunfighters Association. He was not, but we both know what it's like to dress up in Old West clothes and be cowboys here and there. So I kind of thought of him as a fellow gunfighter. And I can tell you the gunfighter community's taken it pretty hard because they also thought the same way of him. But I also think of him as an actor and a filmmaker, which is two things that I am also. And we're both work in the same industry. I mean, at much different levels, of course, but I related to him for that reason too. But then there's the third reason. All right, the third reason I'm sad about Mr. Robert Carradine passing away is he was an important figure for me growing up because a lot of us remember him from the Revenge of the Nerds movies. There were 4 of them, and he played Louis Teradash Skolnick in all 4. He was literally the king of the nerds. And I grew up in the 1970s and 80s when being a nerd was looked at as a negative thing. And you got picked on and bullied quite often, especially at school, just for being a nerd. I didn't even know I was a nerd until people told me. And then at first, I didn't want to be a nerd. I didn't want to be picked on, put down, made to feel inferior. Those are horrible feelings to have at any point in life, but especially when you're a kid. And then in 1984, the first Revenge of the Nerds movie came out. I was 13, and I remember seeing it and being blown away by the movie. Not necessarily that it's that great of a film. I mean, it's a good movie, don't get me wrong, but it was the characters in the film. And I look like them. I dress like them. I talk like them. I acted like them. And I was put down like them and bullied like them. And so it was the first movie I'd ever seen in my life that had characters that looked like me. And it brought a lot to me because it finally made me realize that being a nerd is not a bad thing. It's not bad at all, actually. As a matter of fact, at the end of Revenge of the Nerds 1, the Gilbert Lowe character, Lewis's best friend, says, "I'm a nerd, and I'm pretty proud of it." I am a nerd, and I am pretty proud of it. So, Mr. Robert Carradine, aka Louis Skolnick, and all the other nerds and misfits in that movie, they all made me realize it was okay to be different. It was okay to be weird. It was okay to be an outcast. Because there's always people out there that will love you regardless of whether some do or don't, you know. And those movies taught me that. It's okay to be different, and it's okay to embrace that and embrace each other as friends and family. Revenge of the Nerds 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you've seen them, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go check them out. They're fun movies. They have a decent message in them. And they're cinematic. Good characters that you actually care about. By the way, that's the Alameda Bridge there. I started down by Paseo and hiked north. Okay. Anyway, continuing. You know, I'm sad that he passed away. 71 seems still too young to me. And there's other reasons and stories that I have about Mr. Carradine that I'll tell you here in just a second once I get past this bridge and all the noisiness up here. You know, when a celebrity passes away who has been a part of your life for all of it, and you've watched him in movies and television and things like that, and they played characters that you cared about, it hits you kind of hard because it feels like you're losing a friend you never met. Except in this case, I did meet him once. Actually, almost 2 times I almost had interactions with him. And here next we'll talk about that, about those 2 interactions that I had and the moment I had when I did get to meet him and talk to him. All right, continuing the journey. Here in a second, I'll finish up my story, but I wanted to talk real quick about what we're seeing here. This is the bosque ahead of us, and in the background, those tall, dark things, those are the Sandia Mountains, about 12 or 14 miles from here. Awesome. To the next part of the story here is the 2 times I almost met, and kind of, actually one time I did meet out of those 2 times, and got to chat with Mr. Robert Carradine. I'll tell you about that here in just a moment. All right, so a few years back, there was a Western filming in town called Justice, and had a variety of different actors in it that were notable, and one of them was Mr. Robert Carradine. And he was one of the stars of the movie, and I had been asked if I wanted to work on the film because they hired a bunch of the New Mexico Gunfighters Association to be townspeople and gunfighters in the movie. And I wasn't available to be on the film when they were filming, but a lot of the other New Mexico gunfighters did. But one of the producers on the film is a friend of mine and somebody I've worked with. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to call him and ask him, is it possible for me to interview Robert Carradine for my YouTube channel? And I know that's a big question to ask, and most people will say, well, the answer is going to be no. And that could be true. But if you don't ask, the answer is definitely no. So I thought I'd ask. And you know what? It got approved. Robert said he would do an interview for me on my YouTube channel. I was so excited, so happy. I was like, I can't believe this. This is so great. So I was going to go up to the Western movie set. I believe it was Bonanza Creek movie set near Santa Fe. And have a time where I had a little window, like a certain day and a certain time window, because he's a busy guy, and I completely understand that. And I'm at a dead end. Somebody had a campfire here. All right, turning around. All right, so basically they said it was okay for me to come and interview Robert Carradine on the set on the such and such day between this time and this time. That was the only, one day, one set of hours to be able to be there. And like I said, I understand he's in town, he's working, he's busy, there's a lot going on. The fact that he even said yes blows me away. But unfortunately, I was booked out on another job, another gig already at that point. And for those of you who know me, who worked with me over the years, you know I am fiercely loyal. And when I commit to a project, I finish it. I don't quit something because a better opportunity comes up. I always finish what I say I'm going to do. And so, unfortunately, in this case, that was one of those things. I was already booked somewhere else. I could not find a way to make the window open for what the availability was, and we never got to do the interview. And it would have been a great interview. I had so many cool questions for him, and not just Revenge of the Nerds stuff, but about his entire career dating back to when he started. And it would have just been a nice get to sit down in a room and talk to Robert Carradine for an hour. That would have been awesome. I'm sad that it didn't happen. I was sad then. I tried my best to make it work. It just wasn't in the cards. But I appreciate the fact that the producer asked and that they were able to actually get permission. That was great. All right, so up next is the second interaction I had with Mr. Robert Carradine, but this one was actually in person, where we got to have an actual conversation. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so fast forward a couple years after the Western, and the same producer from the Western is also the same guy who does the Comic-Cons in New Mexico. And about, a year and a half ago maybe, he got almost the entire Revenge of the Nerds cast to come in for Comic-Con and have a forum where they sat down and talked about working on the movie and the movies and talk about just their memories and take questions. So I wasn't going to miss that. I was like, I'm going to Comic-Con this year. I got to watch the Revenge of the Nerds panel. And it was great. All of them were there. Not all of them, but most of them were there. And not just from the first movie, but from other Revenge of the Nerd movies too. So it was really a thrill. And I'll tell you more about it here in just a second. All right, continuing the Comic-Con Revenge of the Nerds panel story. I go to this thing, and first of all, Comic-Con's fun. There's a lot going on, not just Revenge of the Nerds stuff, but lots of interesting, fun costumes and booths and tables and just people, It's a great thing to do. If you've never done it, I suggest it. But I went, predominantly for the Revenge of the Nerds stuff. And so I'm sitting there watching them talk. And they all have like waters and chips and salsa, and they're kind of eating and talking at the same time. So it's really casual. Helicopter coming over here, sounds like. So anyway, it's very casual. They're all sitting at this long set of tables put together, and they're talking about their memories of working on the movie and just fun stuff. And so I was saving up a Louis Skolnick nerd laugh for when there was a moment of silence between talking. I was so nervous to do it, but I got really good at it over the years. That honking nerd laugh that they do in the movie. And so when there was a pause, I did the laugh. Kind of like that, but even louder and more robust. And I was hoping Robert Carradine, sitting at the table, would hear it and acknowledge it, but nobody at the table paid any attention to me doing the big nerd laugh except for one person. And that was Julie Montgomery, who played Betty Childs. She heard me do the nerd laugh. She looked right at me, made eye contact with me, and then gave me the thumbs up. And it was a super thrill for me. It was like, awesome. I did the laugh, and it got a response, and it was Betty Childs. Anyway, so I stay there, I listen to the whole talk, and I'm just smiling ear to ear because that movie, the first movie in particular, meant so much to me as a kid. And to get to see these actors all these years later talking about it was a real thrill. And so that ends. And they all have booths set up at the Comic-Con where they're selling photographs and autographs and things like that. And I wanted to go get some cash and get pictures with all of them individually and then get a group shot. But it would have been over $300, I think, which is a good deal, but I just didn't have that extra money to spend at the time. So unfortunately, I never got pictures with all of them. But after I go and I talk to a few of them and just kind of, they're being part of the Comic-Con, my buddy comes up to me, and his name's J. Nathan Simmons. He's been in the movie business since the 90s, maybe even the 80s, I'm not even sure, but a really long time. And he knew Robert Carradine, kind of. I mean, I don't think they're like best friends, but they knew each other and had worked together several times. So he asked me, do you want to meet Robert Carradine? I'm like, dude, that would be awesome. Yes, please. So he takes me in to the room and introduces me. Robert shakes my hand. I'm so thrilled to get to meet him. I'm standing right face to face with him, and we're chatting, and I got about 10 minutes of his time, I believe. We just talked about movies and talked about Revenge of the Nerds, talked about Comic-Con, talked about life, talked about the missed opportunity to interview him on the Justice Western movie. And it was just a thrill. He was the nicest, most down-to-earth guy. And I wish I could remember every single word we shared with each other during that conversation. I didn't memorize it. It was spur of the moment, but it was good. I got to meet Robert Carradine and talk to him on a personal level, and it was an absolute thrill. So thank you. Thank you all for watching and hearing my story. When someone passes on that you didn't know personally, but they were still part of your life, it's a weird kind of grief. It feels like I shouldn't be as sad as I am, but I'm still sad nonetheless. I mean, I didn't know the guy on a personal level, but I know people who did work with him and family members that knew him, and they all adored him. And my heart goes out to everybody who loved him, who's now missing him, and that he's gone. Hang in there, folks. Hang in there. And just, let's all lift each other up. All right, folks. Well, at this point in the video, we're going to wrap it up here soon. But I'd like to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Robert Carradine. If you can hear me in the great beyond, thank you for everything that you brought to this world. Thank you for the entertainment, for the learning experiences, and for giving me the courage to stand up for myself when I was a kid and I didn't know I was allowed to do that. So thank you. Thank you a million times over. I really appreciate it. All right, folks, we're going to wrap up the video here, but I really appreciate you all watching. Hope you all have a wonderful day. And as usual, love, hate. Take care of each other. Life is beautiful if you know where to look. So keep your mind, your eyes, and your heart open. It just might lead you somewhere special. please check out my channel for over 1,000 additional video adventures. Thanks for watching.